Hey class, welcome to Pretzel Making 101. Today we're going to learn how to make homemade soft pretzels. It's going to take a couple of videos for us to get through this because I have to make the dough and let it rest and all those things. So this is going to be part one of this video. Um, One of the most important things when we're making yeast dough is to remember that the water needs to be about 110 degrees to activate our yeast. Okay. Remember, we have to wake up that yeast. It's dormant, it's dehydrated, it needs warm water, and sugar is its food. And then as it eats the sugar, it produces carbon dioxide. And that's what gives our yeast doughs that light, fluffy texture, right? Just like bread, bagels, have that airy sponge-like texture inside. So that's kind of what we're looking for. All right. So first thing we want to do is measure out our water. We need 1.5 cups of warm water. So I have some water here in the sink. It is at 110 degrees, right? Perfect. That's exactly what we want. So 1.5 cups. I'm going to pour it into this guy first. Then I'm going to measure 1.5 cups. And remember, right, yeast doughs, unlike quick breads, require a lot of kneading. We need to build a lot of gluten structure. So to that, we're going to add 1 tablespoon of sugar. 1 tablespoon of sugar. We're going to mix that up a little bit. Find my spoon. Action. Go. Okay, we're going to mix this guy up, get that sugar to dissolve. And to our sugar water, we are going to add 2.5 teaspoons of dry active yeast. I've got 1, 2.5, and I want to give that a quick stir. Then I'm going to set this aside, okay? I want to set it aside. I want to let the yeast to, wake up and start to rehydrate in that warm water, start eating some sugar, and start to come to life. So I'm going to set this aside. While that's doing what it has to do, let's put our yeast out of the way over here. We're going to measure our dry ingredients. So we need 4.5 cups of flour, or you can weigh it, which is a little bit easier rather than doing 4.5 cups. It would equate to 540 grams or 22 ounces. So I'm going to do grams. It's a lot more accurate. So 540 grams. And weighing things is much faster rather than filling up the measuring cup 1, 2, 3, 4.5, all that stuff, right? Just weigh everything right in one container and you are good to go. 400 grams. Oh, 540 grams. A little over. Let's grab a little bit of that back. Okay. 540 grams. If I wanted to check my ounces, I could switch over to ounces. I've got 19 ounces. I'm going to put just another drop in there. It should be 20 ounces. That's the difference, right? Grams are much more accurate than ounces, but this recipe called for 20 ounces. So we're going to go with that. So our all-purpose flour goes in our mixing bowl. Yes, you could use bread flour. I know there are a lot of recipes that use bread flour. I like to use all-purpose flour. It tends to make a softer pretzel, okay? If you like your pretzel to be on a firmer side, then you can certainly use the bread flour. Bread flour has a higher protein content in it, which will create more gluten. But for a pretzel, all-purpose flour is great. And then to this, we're going to add 2 teaspoons of salt. Remember, our yeast not only needs sugar, but it needs salt. I've got 1 and 2. And then we're going to add some melted butter. Got some melted butter that's kind of cooling right here. I just measured out 4 ounces and pop that in the microwave and just kind of letting that cool a little bit. If you guys can see, Our yeast is starting to activate. You can see those bubbles coming up, and I'm starting to get all of that foam on the top. Okay, that's exactly what we want, right? That yeast is waking up. It's eating the sugar. It's producing the carbon dioxide, which is what's going to give our dough its texture. So I've got my water, my sugar, my salt, my yeast, my flour, 2 ounces of unsalted melted butter. Okay, 2 ounces or 4 tablespoons. So I just barely melted that butter. Get all of that goodness in there. And then my yeast has a nice foamy funk on top. So I am going to get everybody in the pool. Okay, make sure that we kind of scrape all this goodness down the bottom. Get all of that into the bowl. Now you can do this by hand for sure. I've done this many of times by hand without using a machine. But like I've said in the past, you have the machine, you might as well use it. So we're going to get this on our mixer with our dough hook. And we're going to start that mixing. About medium speed is good. So that's about number 4 on here. That's medium speed. While that's mixing, I'm going to get a bowl ready. I need a little bit of vegetable oil in the bottom of my bowl. Because remember, we need to let this rest after we knead it for about an hour. And it's going to get, larger in size. It won't quite double in size, but it will definitely get larger in size. And we have to let that gluten rest, right? We're going to work the dough, work the dough, work the dough. And we need to make sure that we let that gluten rest. So I know a lot of you like the cinnamon sugar pretzel. So we're going to make a little cinnamon sugar mixture while our dough is mixing. Let me get some cinnamon out of the pantry here. So cinnamon sugar mixture for pretzels is usually like 4 times sugar to 1 time cinnamon. So if I use a tablespoon, that means I'm going to do 4 tablespoons of sugar to 1 tablespoon of cinnamon. And this is something you can certainly adjust to your own preference. If you like it more cinnamony, then you add more cinnamon and less sugar, right? If you like it to be a little bit sweeter, you add a little bit more sugar and less cinnamon. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. I think I'm going to double the recipe because I have a big batch of pretzels here. 5, 6, 7, 8. So I've got 8 tablespoons. And to that, I'm going to add 1 tablespoon of cinnamon. And I'm going to give this a mix and see where we're at before I add my 2nd tablespoon. I think that's pretty good. So I've got 8 tablespoons. So we'll say 8 to 1. 8 tablespoons of sugar to 1 tablespoon of cinnamon. I like a lot of cinnamon. Cinnamon is very good for you. It aids in digestion. It helps with your sugar levels if you have a sugar problem. Okay. Anybody that's a diabetic should eat a lot of cinnamon. It's good for you. It's good for your sugar levels. So let's get this out of the way. Put this over there. So our dough is looking pretty good. That's been about 3 minutes on the mixer. And I'm going to finish the kneading process by hand on my board. Bring all this over here. Let's get this out of the way. Let's pull the recipe out of the way. I'm going to put a little bit of flour down. Bink. I'm going to tilt you guys down a little bit so you can see what's going on over here. All right. So I've got a little bit of flour in my hands, and I'm going to get this dough off of the hook. And you can feel the dough. It's really warm. Okay. This dough is slightly on the sticky side, but you should be able to knead it without it sticking to the table. Okay. So we're going to get all this out. I'm going to put a little bit of flour down. And you can see it's like sticky. It's sticky, but it's not like super sticky, if that makes any sense to you at all. So we're going to knead this for a couple of minutes on the bench, on the table. I'm using the top of my oven because that's the space that I have. Okay, gonna get all that out of there. Put that to the side. Again, a little bit of flour in my hands. Remember the kneading process, right? Up and over, press down, turn, press. This dough feels very, very soft. Okay. I don't want it to stick to my hands, but I don't want to add too much flour to it because what's going to happen is I'll make a tough pretzel. Okay. So I'm going to knead this a few times, a few turns. Really, the entire kneading process for this dough is about 5 to 8 minutes. Okay. Depending on the speed of your machine, um, how it feels when it comes out of the machine, how much water you add to it. So in the wintertime, this recipe requires a little bit more water than in time because in the summer, right, there's more moisture in the air. In the wintertime, the air is drier, the heat is on in the house. So you can go with a little, feels pretty nice right now. It's not really sticking. This somewhere where it's warm in your kitchen or in your house, because if you put this somewhere where it's cold, what's going to happen is it's not going to rise. Okay. You're not going to get that volume out of the dough. The yeast is going to kind of go back to sleep. So it needs to be in a warm place in your house. So I'm going to turn on my oven and make my kitchen a little bit warmer. I'm going to set this off to the side. When we come back, part two, I'm going to show you guys how to roll, shape, dip, and bake the pretzel. Okay. See you guys in a bit.